everybody, and welcome to my first video of 2024. Florence has posted a couple of videos on the channel so far this year, but even she has been pretty busy so far in 2024, and I know that she has a video coming up at some point where she'll take you through a couple of the things that have been taking up a lot of her time. But for me, I've just been busy. You know, there's a lot of work stuff, and I've also been making a lot of progress and keeping busy with an unofficial goal of mine that I had when I started 2024, which was to spend time doing more of the things that are relevant to my interests that I really want to do, but that I constantly tell myself I don't have the time, or I don't have the energy, or it would be inconvenient to do them. So I do want to take a whole video at one point and walk you through what some of those things have been this year, because it has been a really good year for that. But you're actually going to see one in the video today, more than one technically, because today I am doing a 48 hours in Los Angeles travel vlog. So if you've been watching our channel for a while, you might remember that Florence did a 48 hours in Los Angeles travel vlog last fall in September or August, and she saw a lot of really cool stuff. I'm hoping to replicate some of the things that she did when I go this weekend, but the real reason that I wanted to go now was actually because of another big interest that I have already mentioned to you guys. I said in one of my Vlogmas videos where I did my 2023 favorites that I had spent a lot of time last year getting really into the Dungeons & Dragons actual play streaming show Critical Role, and specifically also getting into their sort of cosmic horror game system called Candela Obscura that they created in 2023. And it just so happens that they are doing their first Candela Obscura live show this weekend on May 25th, and I had thought about going initially when they first announced it, even though I live all the way across the country. I live in Washington, D.C. So I basically posted on social media saying, someone please talk me out of this if it's a bad idea. Like, it's probably too expensive, it's probably, you know, too short a time for me to really have a great experience. I shouldn't go out of my way for this when they could have another one later on. Basically just saying someone be the person making sense in this conversation. And instead of that, I got Florence telling me that she had done the same trip in 48 hours and had a great time, and a friend of mine who lives in LA saying, no, you should definitely come, we'll go to lunch together, it'll be really fun. So I ended up actually then seriously looking into it and discovering that it actually wasn't quite as ridiculously expensive as I was worried it was going to be. I'm not saying it was super cheap, but compared to the exorbitant amounts of money I thought I was going to be paying on flights and hotels and like a ticket to this show, it actually ended up being relatively reasonable for a cross-country experience. So I'm going. I am catching a late flight out. My flight doesn't leave until almost 10:30 p.m. and that was intentional. I didn't want to take off work because I took off work for the afternoon earlier this week for a dentist appointment, and also because it was the last day of school for seniors. And I don't even teach seniors. I only know like 2 or 3 seniors in the entire graduating class, but it just felt weird to miss their last day. I didn't want to miss their last day. So I wanted to go to work. I have a stretch class this evening that I think I am actually going to go to, because I think it might be nice to get a good deep stretch in before I climb on a plane and fly across the country. And also this seems silly to say, but I really want to tire myself out, because I'm gonna get into LA at like 1 in the morning. but I historically do not sleep on planes. I did a transatlantic flight from Washington, D.C. to London once, and I want to say that on that red eye that got me into London at 6 in the morning, I slept maybe an hour and 15 minutes. So knowing that about myself, I want to make sure that I'm as tired as possible by the time I get on that plane, because if I'm not, then I'm not going to sleep on the plane, and then I won't have any energy left when it comes time to actually go to the show tomorrow night. So that's kind of the game plan. It's also a holiday weekend, and DC traffic is horrible, and so I really don't want to have to get on the major highways until after the bulk of rush hour and holiday traffic is done. And if my flight doesn't leave until 10:30, I really don't have to like hit the highway until, I don't know, like 7:15, 7:30 p.m. That feels a lot more reasonable to me. And then I'm getting back really early on Monday morning, so it's going to be a whirlwind. But I have been vibrating with excitement all day. I'm looking forward to it so much, and I really want to take you with me so that you can see all the fun stuff that I'm doing. So buckle in, get yourself a nice smoothie, something summery, and let's go to LA together. I am at my second hotel of this trip. The first one was just kind of a hotel that was near LAX because I was getting in so late at night and I didn't want to have to worry about getting an Uber and driving all the way into town just at that late hour. So I'm not going to do too extensive of a room tour because this is the same hotel that Florence stayed in on her trip. So you can see that in her video. But it's very basic, so it's got this bathroom right here. It's got the bed right here. And I forgot that the rooms at this hotel look out onto this really cute balcony. So I'm actually going to close the shades on this balcony and take a little power nap because I have about 3.5 hours before I have to hit the road for my show tonight. And I want to make sure that I am rested and ready to go. Okay, we're gonna try this again. I recorded this earlier today and it was a fast-talking, rambling mess. So we're gonna see if I can talk you through this trip a little bit more focused. So hi everybody, I am obviously back home from my trip. I got home quite a while ago. I don't want to say how many weeks between when I got home and when I'm filming this, but let's just say sometime between a few weeks and several. In my defense, it has been the last 3 weeks of the school year from the time I got home until now, so we're all just doing the best we can this time of year. So I'm going to try to talk you through this trip as concisely as possible, but first of all, look at my Candela Obscura live show t-shirt. I got this at the merch table at the show, and I also got this poster with the same design, which I got for free with the t-shirt. I'll tell you about the show when we get to that part of the trip. But let's start with Friday. The last time you saw me talking at the beginning of the video, I was planning to go to my stretch class before I got on the plane. I actually did not end up making the stretch class. I probably had enough time, but I don't know if anybody else is like me. But if I'm going away for a long weekend, weirdly enough, since I won't be in my house, I for some reason feel the need to like put everything in order before I go. So I was running the dishwasher, I was putting everything away, just tidying up before I left, and I eventually decided I didn't have enough, you know, time to go to the stretch class as well. I will say this trip, just by and large, one of the easiest trips I have ever had. I got on the major highways, the interstates outside of DC at about 7:30 p.m. and I have almost never in my life had traffic go that smoothly. I was at the airport by 8:25 and there were barely even slowdowns on the way. I was astonished. For a Friday night on a holiday weekend, I've never experienced that. There was almost no one in the security line, so I was in and out of the security line in like 5 minutes, and my flight was on time. We left on time, we got there on time. It was just great, just so smooth all the way through. Did I sleep on the plane? Maybe a couple of hours, but like not consecutive. It was very choppy. So obviously when I got into the Hilton outside of LAX, I got there at about sometime around 1:30, 1:35 in the morning, and I took a shower and went to bed. And that was all I did on that first night. I got a room service omelet delivered to me in the morning. It was room service, but it wasn't like fancy room service. It was like they bring you like a little takeout container with your omelet in it. And I stayed at the hotel until my checkout time. I didn't want to get to my second hotel in West Hollywood too early because Florence didn't seem particularly certain of whether they would let me stow my bags there until my check-in time. So I didn't want to leave too much time where I would have to find another place to stow them or carry them around. Luckily they did agree to keep my bags for me. So when I eventually got there, I did have a few hours that I could walk around without my luggage. So what I decided to do with my time on Saturday during the day was I knew where I wanted to go for lunch, which was a place called the Original Farmers Market. It's kind of like a regular farmers market, but bigger and with lots of little restaurant stalls in addition to stalls that you can shop at with like regular vendors. And what I didn't know when I decided to go there was that it is in a place in West Hollywood where if you keep walking down that side street through the Original Farmers Market, you end up in a high-end sort of shopping area called the Grove, which is a very well-known shopping area in West Hollywood. I wasn't intending to go there, but it was really fun to walk around. I saw this beautiful fountain, I saw all the shops. I wasn't interested in going into those with the like sort of upscale fashion and beauty. But everyone was out. It was a beautiful day. It was like high 70s, maybe felt like low 80s, but just gorgeous. And the original farmers market was great. So many places, you could pop into every corner and still feel like you hadn't seen everything. I got a poke bowl, which was very delicious. I actually had a little bit of it left over that I put in my fridge in my room and ate later in the weekend. I didn't do much else that afternoon. I went to check in to the hotel at my check-in time, and I ended up just taking about a 30-45 minute nap before I started getting ready for the show. I don't actually have any footage of myself in my costume. I feel kind of bad about that. You know, you get so caught up, you think you're going to take so much footage, and then you look back at the end of the trip and you realize that you didn't film anything because you were so into what you were doing. But basically, in the description for the event, they had said, when you come, you should show up in, it wasn't required, but you should show up in 1920s sort of getup, because the Candela Obscura show is set in a fictional 1920s world. And so I figured most people were going to do that. I don't know if it counts as cosplay if you're cosplaying a historical era rather than a character, but I went with the theme. I went for a more like conservative 1920s look because I didn't own anything that resembled a flapper dress or anything like that. I was very much constrained by the amount of time I had to prep for this. So what I ended up wearing was a lacy top. It was long sleeved, had sort of a higher neck, so it looked kind of like a top that someone might wear in like the turn of the century. And I paired it with a black skirt that I already owned and a pair of black ballet flats. And the lace top came from a secondhand clothing website called ThredUp. I spent about $25 on it, so it was a very cheap way to dress up. You know what I'll do is I will try to make the thumbnail for this video the only picture I have of me in that outfit, and that way you'll get to see it. So let's talk about the show. Let's talk about the venue first. The show was at the United Theater on Broadway, which is an old, like, movie theater kind of thing. It is vintage, it is beautiful. They could, for as far as I'm concerned, they could have every single Candela Obscura live show they ever have in that theater, and I would not complain because it is gorgeous. Just the architecture, really, you'll see it in the video. You have already seen it because this is going to be at the end of the video. It's just lovely. As predicted, almost everybody was dressed up in some way, shape, or form. And so the atmosphere was great. You felt like you were walking into the 1920s. And the show was really great too. I didn't really know what it would be like watching a 4-hour role-playing game, actual play, live. Obviously I know what it's like to watch it on my TV. But it was funny, it was spooky. Kari Payton, who was kind of like the guest star of the show because he was one of the only people who wasn't a main cast member on the actual like Critical Role typical streams, was maybe the star of the show. He somehow managed to put all this backstory and character and conflict into this one character in this one 4-hour time span. They were all dressed up in costume. They moved around the stage more than you typically do when you're playing like a tabletop role-playing game where you're seated the whole time. It just felt very immersive in a lot of ways, and I just really enjoyed it all the way through. One thing that I did find interesting, because I have watched these people so many times on my TV set, and they are, for their very specific niche career, very high profile. They are probably the foremost Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop role-playing game group that exists. And there are also many of them very prominent actors and voice actors as well. Despite that, for some reason, seeing them live had more of the vibe for me that I feel when I go to a DC theater production that like one of my friends is in. I don't get starstruck very easily, but I really thought I would be when I saw these people that I've been obsessively watching on my TV live on stage. But as excited as I was, I don't have any memory at all of feeling starstruck, of not like disbelieving that these people were real people who were in front of me. It just seemed natural. It felt like seeing your friends on stage. And I said something on Twitter where I talked about how I feel like that's a testimony to the kind of community that the specific show develops, because they really do start to feel like your friends, and then it feels more accessible and approachable. And the vibe as well among the other attendees, even though pretty much none of us knew each other, was just a sort of vibe of community. Everyone was there to have fun, everyone was dressed up. We were basically all just sharing an experience together, and I really enjoyed that. So the next day, I have almost no footage of the next day. I was riding high from the show. I forgot to film. I was going to go to the Iliad bookstore. So I checked out of the hotel at my checkout time, and I stowed my bags there again, and I took an Uber to the Iliad bookstore. You will have seen that in Florence's LA vlog. It's a great bookstore with some cats. It's really nice. I didn't bother to check what their hours were because I thought, this is like the big city. Of course, there's no way they'll be closed on Sundays. They were closed on Sundays. So I got there and it was not open. I was meeting a friend of mine about an hour later for lunch. So I ended up messaging her and saying, hey, I was gonna go to the bookstore, but it's closed. So I'm just gonna start walking over to the coffee shop where we're getting lunch. Like literally just show up whenever you're ready. I've got my book, I'll have a coffee, and I'm just gonna sit there until you get there. So she showed up about 40 minutes later, and it was really great to see a friend and talk to her, and we just caught up for like 2 hours and had lunch together, and it was just really nice. So that was the last thing I did before I got on the Uber to go back home to the airport. In retrospect, not a lot of individual things that I did, but even though I don't think I like made the most of my time in that way, all of the things that I did were things that I really enjoyed. So again, very easy trip back. I think the hardest thing, honestly, about the trip back was in DC at 1 in the morning trying to find my way out of the parking lot because they had a weird way that you get out that was much further than how I got in. So I basically ended up driving the wrong way around the parking lot for like 8 minutes trying to find my way out, but the flight was very easy. I had no problems with LAX, which is described by a reviewer on Google Maps, this is maybe my favorite review I've ever seen, as a thoroughly disagreeable airport. I had good experiences with it this time. And I mean, the drive home at 1:15 in the morning in DC, like there was no one else there. And I didn't have as much jet lag as I expected, and I think that's because I did these flights that got in really late at night, so I was just gonna get to all of these places and go to bed anyway. I think that worked to my advantage. So my final thought in general is that I would love to try and go to as many as I can of any future Candela Obscura live shows they have. And I feel like that makes me sound like some kind of super fan, but it's not really about that. It's not about being obsessed with the show so much. It really is about, first of all, that sort of hipster feeling of getting in on the ground floor and being one of the first people to do something. But also that feeling of like community, like I said. We're all experiencing this together, and I want to continue to go to those and experience those. And now that I'm at a point in my life when I have more money to travel and go to performances and do things, I want to maybe keep using that as a way to get myself to new places and engaging with the things that I love. In terms of things that I wish I had done differently, I did just say that I feel like the things I did were really worth doing and that I didn't need to do too much more. I do wish I'd gone to the pool at my first hotel, because I thought it wasn't worth it. I was just gonna stay in the hotel room, but they had a hot tub and I could see that from my window as I was like packing up my stuff to leave, and I was like, oh man, I want to use the hot tub. So I should have done that. I wish I'd had time to do either a hike or the beach, and I probably would have had more time if I had checked out of my morning hotel earlier. On both of those days, if I had planned my time better, I could have done more outdoor stuff. So I wish I'd done some of that. I was prepared for that and I didn't have a chance to. In the future, I'd like to do a longer LA trip. I don't think LA as a city was really my vibe, but I'd like to go back for longer and like brainstorm more things to do. And the other thing that I kind of wish I had done was sort of tried more of the variety of places to eat. I ended up just only going for a couple of things and then just eating leftovers, and yeah, I kind of wish I had done more. I mean, I also, at the hotel, they have a happy hour where you have a like ticket that you can redeem for a glass of wine, and I also wish I hadn't spent so much time trying to make my costume look perfect, so I could have like gone out and had a glass of wine beforehand. So just little things that I would change. For the most part, this was an absolutely fabulous trip. Like, I really knocked it out of the park with this one, not to toot my own horn. I will link the video to the actual stream. It's 4 hours long, you don't have to watch all of it. If they ever do a highlights video, I will post that as well. I should have some other travel vlogs later this year, I hope that I will. In the meantime, I'm gonna sign off for now because I'm really trying to wrap this up. I'm already cringing at the amount of editing I'm gonna have to do. I will see you in my next video, which hopefully will be soon. Bye.